Hey everybody, William here, and today we're talking with Mr. Mark Neal, the one, the only, the myth, the man, the legend, my neighbor, and also I heard he called himself a prize bull once. Hey everybody, William here, and
Sarah.
and
Mark.
So everybody, today we're talking with the Mr. Mark Neal, the one and only, and he is our neighbor. And
God bless him.
Yeah,
God bless him.
I'm sure I've brought anxiety into your life at times, but that's okay.
There's a few house buffer, so it's okay.
This is true.
That is true. That's super true. So, you have a really interesting, work history, but on this podcast, we get to know everybody from the beginning.
Okay.
So if you try and skip ahead, I'm going to bring you back, brother. So let's go ahead and start. Where were you born? Siblings, all that stuff. Let's start in the year 1977.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was born in February of 77. I'm from Dayton, Ohio. Fairborn is the suburb. People wouldn't know where that is. Wright State University's in Fairborn, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, which at one time was the largest Air Force base in the country in terms of size. And, of course, Dayton's, where the Wright brothers are from. So, yeah, it makes sense.
Of course.
All
Everybody
this
knew that.
Ohio knowledge.
Yeah, just coming in with the OH.
Yeah.
I-O.
So, the Wright brothers were from Dayton and first in flight. Of course, they did it in North Carolina because they needed more flat room than they had in Ohio.
You keep saying, of course, like we all know this.
Oh, okay.
And I'm gonna preface this, you guys. Mark Neal is very smart. He knows all of his presidents, and
You want him on your trivia team.
you do want him on your trivia team, but he loves to play host. Dun, dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun, dun.
But I've both my parents were high school teachers, and my mom was a Spanish teacher. My dad was actually an industrial arts. So he taught wood shop. He taught metal
nice.
work. Of course,
Really?
Yes, of course.
Gosh,
I
I
have
love learning
zero
this stuff.
skills in either, and that's one of my biggest regrets is that I never learned Spanish. I wish I had the forethought to sit my mom down and learn Spanish. That would be very beneficial, but I didn't, and nor can I do anything with wood other than burn it.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were high school teachers. My dad ended up at the end of his career becoming a counselor. My mom was at the high school when I was there. My dad was there when both my parents were at the high school when my brothers were there.
Okay.
I have two brothers, older. I'm the youngest. But by the time I got to the high school, my dad had become a counselor and left and gone to the junior high, but my mom was there. So my mom was in the building when I was there.
Okay. Hold on. Back it up
How
a little
did your
bit.
parents meet?
No.
Like, did they meet
Oh yeah, I guess
through,
we
like,
can ask
school?
that. Yeah.
Yeah, they met at the school. They actually were set up. My dad had been divorced, so my brothers are technically my half brothers, but my mom raised them.
Okay.
My dad got divorced from his first wife, I think, when they were 4 and 2.
Okay.
And my dad actually, even in 1973 or whatever it was, got custody, which is unheard of.
Okay. Yeah.
Very unheard of for a single male to get custody of two small children in 1973. But anyway, he was set up with my mother, who was single, and they got married a few years later, and so I'm their only child per se.
Joint child.
But my brothers were always around, and they call my mom.
Okay.
So kind of thing. So it was biologically, I guess, half, but you'd never really know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, I had two parents that were teachers and two older siblings, and school was a big deal, certainly.
And did you like school?
Yeah, it was okay.
Yeah.
It was a highly focused thing. When your parents are teachers, that's school is the end all be all of everything.
Yeah,
that's all they want to talk to you about. Everything revolves around school, stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting because my dad was the first person in our family to go to college.
Oh,
so
okay.
my grandfather had a 5th grade education and was a farmer before he got pulled off the farm to go to World War II. My grandmother had like an 8th grade education, ended up getting a GED. She wanted to graduate high school before my oldest brother, which was her oldest grandchild, graduated high school. So she got a GED.
As an adult.
Yes, way as an adult.
Way later, okay.
So 2 generations later, you have my dad my dad has passed now, had 2 master's degrees, and all 3 of his kids have college degrees. My oldest brother went to grad school at Cornell. In
New York?
The Ithaca, New York,
Yep.
not the Cornell
Not the one I
College, the
went
to.
Cornell
Yeah,
University.
Yep.
My middle brother went to Vermont Law School and is an attorney, and I have a master's degree in education. So 2 generations removed from a 5th and an 8th grade education, you've got 3 bachelors, 3 masters.
Wow.
So, or doctorates, a Juris
Yeah.
Doctorate technically is what my middle brother has. So things change, and it really took. Sometimes, and I think people struggle with this in America because you see it as in education. Sometimes it just takes one generation to say you're going to college, and then it changes everything.
Yeah.
So my grandparents were determined to send my father and then subsequently his siblings to college, and that was, and then from there on, now it's the expectation, not the hope.
I love
Oh,
that.
okay. So, I should have had you listen to an episode. We're going to bring it back. Tell us
Oh.
about Mr. First Grade Mark Neal.
Oh.
What were you doing? What were you doing as a kid?
Sports?
I played a lot of sports growing up. I always had an interest in sports and watching sports and playing sports and
So having
all
2
that.
older brothers, did they beat you up in the
Oh,
sports?
of course. And my
Yeah,
brothers
yeah,
were exceptional high school wrestlers, state qualifying high school wrestlers.
Okay.
But I'm bigger than they are, much bigger now.
Yeah.
So they always used to pick on me, and they would double team me, kind of thing. And I remember saying something to my middle brother, saying, "Why do you guys do this?" He's like, "Well, we do it now because we can't do it later." When I was at my heaviest, I was just about as heavy as the 2 of them combined. They're small guys. Now they've put on some weight as they've gotten older, but my oldest brother's probably 5'8", 5'9".
Mm-hmm.
He wrestled at 112 in high school.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
he was a smaller.
Yeah. And then my
petite.
middle brother, my middle brother's put on some food and drink weight, but he's still probably only about 170 pounds.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm markedly bigger than both of them, even though I'm younger.
You're swole.
And I was way bigger than them by the time I was a freshman in high school. So,
Okay.
they could do it then, but I would I'd
Gave
clump
it
their
back.
heads together now.
Gave it back. Yeah.
But yeah, it was just a lot of that kind of thing.
Usually you think about a household with 3 boys. Like, did you guys just eat all the time? Being in sports or no?
My mom won't be listening to this, so I can say this, I guess. No, because my mom's cooking was horrendous. And that's one of the reasons. That was kind of the impetus of why I love to cook. Now, my grandmother was a very good one. We grew up, until 3rd grade, we actually lived. The house I own now in Ohio, it was my grandparents' house, and we lived behind it. We used to call it the Neal compound. So we had 2 houses and 4 plots of land in this square that backed up to one another. Right? And so when my dad sold their house to my brother, I have the house now for my grandparents. My brother and I lived there back to back. It used to be my dad and my mom and my grandparents lived back to back. Now my brother has sold it and somebody else owns it now, and I still own this house. But so we were always at my grandparents' house, and my grandma could cook really well, and she taught me how to garden. They had huge gardens, which I still use those gardens now to this day. But no, my mom couldn't cook at all. So we didn't eat all the time. We ate whatever we could muster.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Okay, so where did you go to elementary school?
I went to a school called 5 Points Elementary, which ironically was just torn down last week.
I saw that video.
Yeah, it was devastating for me because my brothers all went there. My aunt went there. My dad taught there. I substitute taught there. I met so many friends of mine that I still have to this day there. In fact, I drove back to Ohio in June because they did the last walkthrough.
Oh.
So I drove all the way back just to walk through. So me and one of my best friends from school walked through it together. And that school is down the block from my house in Ohio.
What do they
Of
put in
course
there
it is.
instead?
Is Ohio 17 square feet? Because everything seems to be right behind you or in your backyard.
No, just everything just so happened to be close to where I lived. No, they built an elementary school next door, a new one.
Okay.
So the town got all new schools. They're getting the new high schools being built, the new athletic facilities. Everything was old, and that school was old. I joked that the air quality has got to be horrific in Fairborn because Lord only knows what was used to build that place.
Right.
And they just
yeah.
knocked it down.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, what is in the air right now? And 5 Points Elementary at the time, it's really strange that it was kind of out of date in many reasons. One of the ways it was out of date was that it was a single-story school that was like a half-mile long. If you stretched it was enormous. It was one of the biggest schools in the state, but it had like 20-some exterior doors, so security for it was impossible. As we've gotten to this world we live in now,
Where we think about elementary school security.
Yeah, now this new school's got like 3 ways to get in, and they're all now that school had a door everywhere you looked leading to the outside, so it was a nightmare to keep locked and secured and stuff like that. So it was a matter of time before they built a new one. I went to that school from kindergarten through 6th grade. And my brothers went there. Like I said, my dad taught there. I taught there.
Do you remember what the mascot was?
We were the Falcons.
The Fighting Falcons.
My high school was the Skyhawks.
Oh, the Fighting Skyhawks.
That's actually like an aggressive
Would
mascot.
you rather be a falcon or a skyhawk? Because first of all, is there a groundhog?
I don't know. But technically, what's funny is that our mascot was a bird, but the Skyhawk there's no such bird as a Skyhawk. Skyhawk's actually a plane, but we were a bird. I don't know.
See, that's why I was confused. I'm like, I mean, I know what a hawk is. And okay, well, whatever. Moving on. Okay, so we do 1st through 6th grade there. You're the youngest of 3. Life's going well. All of a sudden, we go to middle school. What's going on in middle school for Mr. Mark Neal?
Just the awkwardness of growing up.
Gosh, middle school's rough.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky. I've always had a lot of friends that I still have a lot of friends, so that helped out. But I mean, nothing too interesting was going on for sure in middle school or even into early high school for me. So,
how'd you pick? Where did you go to college?
Well, Sarah, stop.
What?
What are you doing? We're not just gonna skip middle school and high school and go straight to college. Stop it. Always trying to jump ahead. How did you meet Tyra? We'll figure that out in a bit here.
I know.
Gosh, every time she always skips ahead.
How'd you become our neighbor?
Yeah, how'd you? Yeah. That's a good story because I was involved in it. So we're in middle school. Like, are you like in band? Are you doing sports? Like, what are you doing in a fun typical day?
What was I doing? Stuff that I can talk about now. Playing sports.
Yeah.
I mean, I was a soccer player, basketball player growing up. A typical high school, not doing enough schoolwork, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Probably goes in there. I worked at a grocery store, which is part of my affinity
You
for
did?
grocery. Yeah.
See, you wanted to skip this.
It was right near my parents' house, so I could walk there if I needed to. But that's why I have this strange affinity for grocery stores. I love going there. I love to go into the grocery store. I learned how to shop working there, looking for price per ounce and things like that. I started off as the guy that pulled all the stuff to the front of the shelves, called the fronter.
FIFO?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
fronter.
First in,
fronter.
first out.
Yep.
And then I did some register stuff, and then I worked. We actually had a video store in the grocery store, so I worked back there, and that was the best.
That was
I
the
loved
cool.
that.
That's where the cool kids got to work.
Yeah.
So, what was your favorite movie growing up? You're a big movie guy.
Oh wow. See, everybody was always like favorite. I'm the worst guy at favorites. Like, people, what's your favorite food? I don't know. I don't know what my favorite. I don't have a lot of favorites. I can always tell you, like, I have 3 or 4 things that would probably be it. But my favorite movie growing up, I always liked all the Indiana Jones movies.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Okay. So you must have been just horrified when the one comes out where he was in the freezer.
The Broken Skull.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw that once.
Yeah.
No, Last Crusade. Even though Last Crusade is really basically just a redo of Lost Ark, in a lot of ways, I loved that movie.
Very cool. All right, so now we're in middle school. We're working at a grocery store, maybe middle school, high school. What's going on in high school? Are we getting good grades? Are we out chasing girls? Are we stealing McDonald's signs? Like, what are we doing?
Like I said, once again, my parents aren't listening. So, partying a lot. It was the early 90s, so there wasn't a whole lot. There was no cell phones. We had paged each other, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Did you have a pager?
I didn't have anything like that till work, and I had to have one for the radio station
Okay.
as I got older. But no, just the regular high school teenage angst.
Oh, I don't see that. So your high school experience is vastly different from mine, which is vastly different from Sarah's. So I don't take normal just as the answer. So, but thank you for sharing. So in high school, you were also working at the grocery store.
Yeah, that's where I started.
Okay.
Maybe my very late sophomore year is when I started working there.
What store was it?
It was a place called the Farm, PHARM.
Oh,
It was like-
fancy.
yeah, it was like I had a pharmacy in there, I guess. But it was near the house, and
Of course it was.
so why
Everything's
not?
near the Neal. Everything's close to the Neal compound.
Yeah, gotta stay close.
How far away was the high school from the Neal compound?
A mile. So my parents' commute every morning was just down the road.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, that's right, because they're both teachers.
Yeah.
So
With all the summers off, like you had mom and dad home at the same time. So
Oh,
did you
good
guys
question.
travel, road trip? Like
Oh
what-
yeah, we visited people, the family. My parents were very frugal. They wanted to make money, last. So we always went somewhere, usually where we could stay with someone.
Yep.
So my dad's best friend from school growing up lived in West Palm Beach, so we'd go down there and stay with them, which was cool. My aunt and uncle, my dad's sister and her husband, my uncle, were military, so they were always
They
somewhere
were
else.
always somewhere new.
Every 3
yeah,
years.
yeah.
So we'd go stay with them wherever they were. My uncle at the time lived in Knoxville, so we'd go down to Knoxville. My parents liked to camp, so we'd go to Canada camping and stuff like that. But yeah, they were always home in the summer. My dad was also in the Air Force Reserves, so
he was?
Oh,
yeah.
see?
So when I go home, I have access to the base and things like that. Go and the liquor store there, which is cheaper. So he was gone. I think he retired by the time I got to high school. He put his years in, but he still got a retirement from that. But they were around a lot. I would just play. I watched a lot of baseball. I watched Cubs games in the mornings because they were on WGN, and they played day games because Wrigley didn't have lights yet. And then I watched the Braves and the Reds
Seriously?
at night. Yeah, I don't think Wrigley got lights till '89 or '90.
So when did you become infatuated with sports?
Oh, probably 6, 7 years old.
Okay.
I would, baseball card, football card collect and read the stats, and that's how I remember all this stuff. And my first love was really college football, which it still is. So that's kind of where that all began. I loved college football, just the fight songs and the whole shebang, the pageantry, if you will, around all that.
So you're a big Bama guy.
No. Ohio State.
Just kidding.
But that's kind of where I got involved with all of that, and but baseball cards, and like I said, reading all that stuff, and I just have that kind of memory where I can remember that kind of useless info.
So did you like the actual the sports, the athletic side of it, the stat side of it? What fascinated you with sports? What brought you to that?
I just liked to watch the athletic maybe side of it. I didn't really get into the stat side of it other than just reading the stats. I didn't really think about much analytical.
Just like what they were capable of.
Yeah, I just liked watching sports.
Yeah.
I thought it was fun. There wasn't a lot to do. You guys know that in the '80s there just wasn't a lot to do. So I'm a TV hound. The TV's always on at my house, whether I'm watching movies or games or
You tend to have a lot
YouTube.
of cool old classic movies playing, and I shouldn't say old classic, but just movies. What was one movie we were watching the other day that I hadn't seen in a very long time when it was done at your house? So I don't know. You just tend to have a lot of '80s movies on.
I always have the TV on. It's just
Yeah.
that was kind of like my babysitter growing up. So I
Yep.
just always watch something. TV's always on at my house.
All right, so
I'm not sitting there watching. it.
no,
It's just on and I'm
It's just
doing
on,
stuff.
yeah. So now we're in high school. We're thinking about graduating, and college was just an automatic for you, kind of like
Oh,
what you're
yeah.
saying. Okay, so how, like Sarah said, what was your question, babe?
I don't remember.
Where I went to college.
How did
Where
you-
did you go to college? and
how
how
did you
pick
choose?
it?
Well, my family, my parents had gone to grad school both at University of Dayton. My middle brother had gone there, and it's a private Catholic school. I'm Catholic. It's a great school. Family had gone there, so I went to University of Dayton.
So is that where OH?
No, that's Ohio State.
Yeah.
Okay, that's Ohio State.
So Dayton, I don't know.
The Dayton Flyers, where it's a good basketball school. That's probably if you've heard of it. That's how you've heard of it.
The Fighting Flyers. I don't know. I have not.
But yeah, it's a private Catholic school in Dayton.
All right. So what were you? What when you went to, so you're a quote unquote good Catholic boy, right? not breaking any of the rules.
No.
Not doing anything
Never.
wrong.
No.
Not you
Being
know.
a good Catholic takes a lifetime. And maybe some don't even get there. You're always getting better.
We're gonna have some Mark Nealisms for
that's
later.
a good one. A good Catholic takes a lifetime. That's fantastic.
We're glad to be with you on the journey.
Oh,
yes,
thank you.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so freshman year, like, what's going on? Did you take a gap year? Did you go travel Europe? Like,
No, I should have. I wasn't ready for college.
who really is at that age?
Well, I mean, I wasn't ready even academically. School was kind of easy for me, and I didn't work hard at it. Not to say I was a straight A student, because I wasn't. I'm just saying I did enough in high school to get by. And then when I got to college, it got a lot more difficult, and I really didn't have the studying skills or the patience. And I've never been one that's able to – my mind wanders. So I have trouble sitting there reading bulk amounts
Yes.
of things. I just
Yeah.
I had troubles doing that. So when it came down to, reading X amount of pages per night of something, that was tough for me. So there were parts of school that I struggled with, and there were parts that I certainly, that I didn't. But college, it took me 5 years. I was in no real hurry.
Was it a 4-year program?
College is whatever.
You want it to be.
Whatever you want it to be. Some people can graduate without much problem in 3.5 years. Most people at the pace that the 14 credit hour or whatever the case may be, usually turns out being a 4-year thing. And,
Okay.
because you're going at a more steady pace. If you wanted to amp it up and go summers, you could graduate in 3.5 years.
If you were an overachiever, you would start in high school.
Yeah, you could. I mean, a lot of people have credits going into college. For me, I took a lot of classes that didn't get credits. They were just like studying skills and things like that I needed.
So,
But I got better at school as I went along.
and your undergrad degree was in education?
It's in communication.
Oh, communication.
Yeah.
Okay,
So at
My
this
master's was in education.
got it.
so at this point, now we're in college. Are we in a frat? We don't
Nah.
have frats at Catholic
Yeah,
schools.
oh yeah, we did.
Oh really?
Dayton's a legendary party school.
Tell me more.
No, it's
They're
famous.
all working on being good Catholics.
It's a famous
Yeah.
drinking party school. No, I worked at a restaurant in college, and that's and I worked for the school paper. I covered different. I wrote articles for this, for that. Covered different teams as a beat writer type thing. I wanted to be a sports writer. Of course, that was back in late '90s when newspapers were a thing. And you could kind of see it coming that was petering out. And at the restaurant I worked with a guy that worked in promotions at the radio. At some of there's really 3 groups of radio stations in Dayton, owned the iHeart stations. Back then it was Clear Channel, owned by different companies, but they had like blocks of 4 or 5 stations in the building, rock stations,
Yep.
AM, anyway. So he worked for one of the groups of stations in promotions, and he said to me, he goes, "Hey, I'll get you in the building. We have a sports station there. I'll get you in the building doing promotions. You kind of worm your way through." And of course, that's the best, to me, best advice you can give to anybody that wants to get into
your profession.
yeah, get in the building and then
Yep.
figure it out from there. Hardest part's getting in the building.
Okay.
So back then, we're talking, I started working there 2000. Sports talk as a 24-hour thing was really in its infancy, really new. Very few stations around the entire country were 24-hour sports. Even the station that was in the building, we were an ESPN affiliate, but we were also a CNN affiliate. We ran block programming for realtors, as we were told.
Real tours. Yes.
We had a computer. These guys would sit around just like we are back in 2000. So my picture what this was like, I stumbled across this website. That's what it was for drive time, just this weird. We had a jazz show on Sundays. It was just this kind of like piecemealed together. We'd have a sports show, and then it'd be CNN headline news for the next 2 hours, So even that station, which was an ESPN affiliate, was sports only so often. So I worked in promotions for a while, setting up remote broadcasts and setting up, doing the banners.
Like contests.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. But there was a sports show on that station that they did locally. It was just a half an hour twice a week on Tuesday and Thursday. So I got to talking to the people there. Am I getting too far ahead?
No,
No, it's
great.
perfect.
I started talking with the guys in the hallway and things like that, and they were like, "You need to be on this show with us." I was like, "All right, So I go in, and
Like your plan is working.
yeah, I'm like, "All right." So there's 3 guys on this show, and I come sit in. And they're just with newspapers. Like, there's no organization, nothing. And they're just like yamming. So it's just the strangest thing how this happened. So one of the guys that was on the show, I was on the show with him one time, and he actually quit the station to go do something. I think he was doing sales for insurance, or he left. So it was me and these 2 other guys. The next time we go in on the show, I've got formats printed out. I'm like, here's what we're going to talk about. I've got stuff. And they're like, "Oh, you're taking over." I was like, "No, I'm just trying to point this horse in the right direction. It's going to sound better." So within a couple weeks, one of the other guys, he was the program director of the Top 40 station, and his role just got too big. He was too busy. So within a couple of weeks, he's gone. So it's just me and this other guy. And then the other guy ends up, he's too busy. He's working at night. And so within 2 months, I have this thing to myself. And it's twice a week for half an hour. So I talk him into doing the whole hour because it's like, it's
You
weird.
can't get enough in 30 minutes.
That and in the way we did our programming, it just sounds weird to just all of a sudden, very few things in radio have a clock, and that's a radio term, the way the clock is built, where you can just hard out at 30 minutes after the hour right into something else.
Right.
And it just didn't sound right. It was like, it just makes sense for us to go to the top of the hour, hit the legal ID, fire up whatever it is we're going to run after, and start a whole new hour. So we did that twice a week for an hour. And I did that for a long time, part-time working there.
What was the show about, and what was it called?
It was called The Tailgate Party.
Okay.
And we talked about local, not local sports, somewhat local, but, Browns, Bengals, Reds,
You have a lot of
Buckeyes.
sports,
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah, that's the beauty that's one of the things I loved about doing sports in Dayton. I could talk Cleveland and Cincinnati and Columbus, as opposed to being in Cincinnati and being forced to talk about the FC Cincinnati and all this other, bull jive down there. I could talk about whatever I wanted. And plus, nobody was looking over my shoulder. I had free reign to do whatever I wanted as long as the FCC didn't call.
What formal training did you have to step in and all of a sudden just start doing your own radio show after 2 months?
None really in that. I had been a sports writer for a long time.
Okay, so you knew your stuff.
And I knew how to pick topics. And I always thought that being a sports writer all those years helped in so many ways, because I could I had a good feel for what was important, what was the topics, what were the big topics. And the writing came in handy because they wanted you to write stuff for the website. So I wrote articles for the websites, previews of games, previews of, hey, here's my division picks, and you'd write a little blurb about it. Anyway, that ended up being beneficial, being a writer on radio, which sounds strange, but it really was very helpful. So I did that for a while. I never felt like it was going to go anywhere full time. So I stayed working at the radio station. I was substitute teaching, but I went back to grad school because I just didn't know if this was ever going to work out. So I get pretty much all the way through it was a four quarter grad school. It was a year and a quarter essentially of grad school. It was in the last quarter, and the guy that was the program director at the AM station that I worked at got let go. So they asked me, they're like, "Hey, you want to be the program director?" I was like, "Well, yeah. I wish you'd have told me this a year ago."
What does it even mean to be? That sounds like, it doesn't seem like a position is to throw somebody in.
I'd been there a while.
Okay.
So
He was letting the building, and he had to worm his way through.
Plus, I hate to say this, but comparing me to the guy that I replaced,
you were good.
Compared to that guy, yeah. It was a big step up Okay, the guy was
I don't know if you know this, but I'm pretty good
no,
at
the guy
this.
was no. I'm just
Kind of a
saying the
big deal.
bar was set low. Let's just put it that way. He was worthless. I hate to say that, but I'm just let's just
Love it.
call
Love it.
call it what it is.
That's awesome.
So I step in there and I was like, okay, here's what I want to do. We're going to do a show 5 days a week now for an hour. And they were like, all right, cool. And they brought me in basically to be the hatchet man and kill off anything that wasn't sports. So immediately I came in there and made a whole bunch of friends. Not. So I'm
But I bet you did it really nicely.
people don't care at that point. When
Yeah.
you're telling them you're taking away what it is they do, their little ego trip, people get pissed off at you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I immediately was thrown into a very untenable situation. But that's part of it. I don't really care. And that really helped me a lot because I always thought, stupidly, that people in that business could get along and people in that business could work together and we just all do the same thing, just a different. No,
Let's
We're
collaborate.
all in the
No.
same sandbox
no,
here.
and I learned that it just doesn't work that way. I learned that work's work, and friends are friends, and the way I am in my regular life is very different than how I was at work. At
Yep.
work, I was very brass tacks. If I didn't like you, or you were in my way, I let you know. I just don't
Oh.
care.
the Neal dog coming in. I love it.
I think that's honestly, I think that's a Gen X thing. I just think
Yeah.
it's a Gen X thing. Is like, this is my job. I earned this. Get out of my way.
LFG. Let's go.
I was, people that I had gotten to know really well as a part timer, I had to let them go, push them out, and so, but it taught me a lot. It hardened me. It helped me in that role. But I became the program director there. It was the first station in Dayton. So WING, 1410 AM station. It was the first station that signed on in Dayton. And here I am, the program director, a station I grew up listening to. And
Wow,
everybody
that's pretty cool.
it was the station back in like the 50s and the 60s. It was the AM, when AM played all the rock music. That was the station.
The thing.
So all the adults were like, "Whoa, you work at WING?" It's like, "Yeah, it's a sports station." And they're like, "What? It's a sports station now?" Back then, it was the top 40.
Okay.
Anyway, so lots of things had to change. It's a changing world. Dayton is a strange market. We were a top 60 market. We were like 59th. But the problem is that they had a top 100 budget, but they wanted top 20 results. So I didn't have any help. I was a one-man show. So eventually I had to realize, I was like, my biggest and only asset is me. It's like, I've got to do so much stuff. And I wanted to do so much stuff. So I told them, am I going too
No,
far?
this is
Okay.
awesome.
Let me ask you some questions here. No, because
But we're at like a pivotal part right here.
we're gonna get back to it. So how long were you in this position until? So how long were you in the building before you got the director role?
5 years.
Okay, so then 5 years in, you got to come in. You're the hatchet man. You start changing everything, making everything sports, and creating friends. Not so much at times.
Depending on who they were. Other
Yeah.
people at the other stations didn't care. They loved me. But, I had to make some tough decisions.
Yeah.
Not tough for me, but tough for other people.
Right. And then I like that. And then all of a sudden you're having this realization that they want you to have that champagne taste, but they're giving you a beer budget.
Mhm.
So you said you had a realization that you're the asset. That's a really cool. I like that realization. It's just like, hey, if something wants to get done and they want me to do it and I'm serious about this, well, then I better just figure it the F out. So let's go. So what happened?
Well, another thing I wanted to do is we were the radio home of the Buckeyes for football and basketball, but for football specifically. And the head coach
That's the OHIO.
and the head coach at Ohio State at the time was a guy by the name of Jim Tressel. Okay, Jim Tressel was at Youngstown State for a long time. He won 4 national championships in 1AA. But he was my uncle, so my mom's sister's husband.
You were related to him?
No. I'm getting there, though.
Oh, okay.
My mom's sister's husband was the head of the philosophy department at Youngstown State and a big booster for the football program and was tight besties with Jim Tressel when he was at Youngstown State. All of a sudden, this guy that I've known for years, because he'd come to family functions, I'd see him, I knew him.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Was now the head coach at Ohio State. So I'm like, I told the GM at the radio station, I was like, and mind you, I'd just gotten this job. This is months after I got the job. I was like, hey, if you guys can get me like 20 footballs, I can get them all signed by Coach Tressel. We'll do these pregame tailgate parties, and we'll auction these off and give it to the Cancer Hospital, Ohio State. And they're like, oh, yeah, sure. Like, oh, okay, we'll get you the footballs. And next thing you know, I show up, and I've got a box of 20 footballs signed by Jim Tressel. And they were like, that basically opened their eyes to there's things we can do with this station. So we went from really never doing anything other than just turning the station on, turning it off, and then I get there. We were averaging 100 remote broadcasts a year when we were doing 5 before I went there.
Oh, wow.
So we were doing Buckeye pregame shows. We were taking my show on the road just for money's sake. I started a Sunday morning Ohio State recap show that was year-round, so 52 Sundays a year. We were at, like, wing places like Frickers and Roosters, which were Dayton area local.
Like Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we were doing all kinds of stuff, monetizing the station. And by then they were like just, but at the same time now I'm the guy doing all this. And then I decided I wasn't doing enough apparently. I had a great relationship with the commissioner of the Greater Western Ohio Conference, which is the big high school football conference in Southwest Ohio. So the big schools like Centerville, where Kirk Herbstreit went, and AJ Hawk and all these guys.
Oh, I know AJ Hawk. I know that name.
Wayne, which Marcus Freeman, who's the head coach at Notre Dame, he played at Wayne.
Oh, wow.
A lot of different guys. So that's all the high schools in the Dayton area. I said, hey, they'll let us and help us and we'll do high school football. So I started calling the games with a friend of mine who was a writer, a high school football writer for a website called JJ Huddle. And so we called high school football games every Friday night. So I did the show all week, high school football Friday night, Buckeye pre-games on Saturday mornings, and then the Sunday recap.
How old are you at this point?
26 or 27.
And you're basically now working 7 days a week.
Oh, yeah.
And you're running a radio station, legitimately running,
24/7.
operating. Yeah.
So off the air at night, you got to deal with that kind of thing. And, technology changed where I could VPN and do things from home. But at those times, things happen. You're calling engineers. If you have to, you got to go in. That didn't happen a lot, but it happened. And with my anxiety, there was problems. Because I'm not really good with things that go wrong while I'm in charge of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that did not do me a lot of mental health good to have that kind of job, but I survived. But yeah, they just kind of, after I started showing them that we can do these things and they started making money off it, any idea that I had, they basically went for.
They're ready to run with it.
So radio. It's not the most liquid, like it's not the most fruitful career out there. Am I right or wrong?
Financially?
Yeah.
No, that was also a lot of this stuff was self-serving. I was making not much money as in terms of base salary, but I was making more money.
Probably in your experience, like
all the outside the station stuff. I was making more, adding up. Than I was in my base salary. And then I was becoming well known in town, so I was endorsing everything. I had tons of endorsements.
Okay, so that's how you were able to actually make a living.
Do you remember any endorsements? Like, do you remember any of your commercials?
Oh, yeah.
Well, the one that really sticks out to me the most is, it's ironic because here we are and he's from around here, if I'm not mistaken, was I endorsed My Pillow.
Oh, really?
Right when that first came out. Okay, so this is actually kind of a funny story. I don't know if I should say this, but I guess it was on a conference call. So I'm on a conference call with a bunch of other stations. They wanted to do all sports and news talk. So it was across the country, news talk and sports talk hosts were on this conference call with a rep for Mike Lindell and Mike Lindell. So they're talking about all this and the talking points and the history of the company and the whole thing with the pillows and the Egyptian cotton from the delta of the Nile and the whole thing. And then out of nowhere, they're like, yeah, and as most of you may know, Mike Lindell was a crackhead and he's a recovering. I was just like, just out of the blue, we're talking
Really?
we're just straight talking business, and then all of a sudden, something to that extent. I'm not sure that was the exact quote, but something. The guy was
Extreme like
the guy
that.
had a drug problem of some description. I'll put it that way. That may be a little bit of a loose term I used, but there was some sort of substance abuse, and it just came out of left field. I could just collectively hear kind of
Like, huh?
everybody going, "Wow, that took a left turn." But no, I endorsed many local products, Mathnasium.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah, I convinced the guy. 'Cause they were buying a schedule on the radio station, and they took me. Sometimes they take me in there because I was known in town, and they're like, "Hey, here's Mark Neal. You can meet him. He'll be the one doing the reads on the show." I convinced the guy that lots of dads listen to me on the way home, and Dad may be the last person that needs to be convinced that little Billy needs to need math help, and he'll go home and tell Mom, and they'll agree. And he's like, "That sounds great." So they paid me what they paid me every week to endorse Mathnasium. I endorsed hundreds of products over the years.
So
I wouldn't say it.
you were just
probably 100 products.
You were just whoring yourself out for the highest bidder.
I would have endorsed tampons.
Thank you
I-
for all the women in the world.
At,
Thank you.
at some point, you just need the money.
Yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down. That's fair. That
No,
makes
but
sense.
at the same time, it is what it is.
Yeah.
They ask you to basically put your name behind all kinds of things that you aren't,
Did you ever say no to endorsements?
I was going to ask that.
Were you ever like,
I can't. I'm sure I have. And in fact, I'm pretty positive I did. But I cannot think of what that product was.
Yeah.
There's things that I said no to, but I can't remember
Yeah.
offhand what it was. I just remember being like, I'm not comfortable doing that.
All right, so we're now 6, 7, 8 years. How long did we stay at that station?
I was there 18 years, so
wow.
I was the program director for 14 years, longest running program director in the history of that station.
Wow. Oh, okay.
I have my next question,
didn't
but
expect-
Will is going to be
I didn't expect it to jump 18 years there all of a sudden. So okay, so 4, 5, 6 years in, you start doing all of this. Like, what are some of the most memorable things that happened during that 18 years?
Really just my whole goal was to have a sports talk show that was on every day in that town. They had done stuff at other stations, and even at my station that was, this here and there, once a week, twice a week, nothing that ever stuck. I wanted to build something that was Dayton's and would maybe even live on past me, which it still does. The guy that took over from me still has the show. In fact, he added a third hour, 5 days a week. So it still goes on after I left.
That's really cool.
Which is cool.
That's really cool.
But I had a lot of great memories from being there.
I have a quick question, though. So you were program director and yet still went back to grad school.
I was part-time while I was in grad school, and then
Okay.
right at the end of grad school is when they approached me because they were like, "We're going to let this guy go. Would you like to replace him?"
And that's when he said, like, "Why didn't you tell me this a year ago?"
Yeah, when after I accrued all the
I guess
school
I missed
loans
that
and
part of the story.
spent the time.
You were here for it.
And I never taught other than substitute teaching while I was doing that because I don't know if that's the way it is. You substitute taught, didn't you? In the state of Ohio, you accrue retirement through the state teacher's retirement as a sub. So I was like, I'm going to start working on retiring now. And so I subbed while I was in grad school. Sub for a little over 2 years. So I have 2.5 years of retirement in as a teacher. But I never actually taught as a full-time teacher.
Full-time, okay.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So, we're living in Dayton. We're working in Dayton. We're running a TV show. A radio station. Not even just a show, but a station.
Yeah. One of 5 in the building.
Okay. So, what are you doing for fun during that time? Like, were you dating anybody?
Oh, yeah. I mean, gosh, I didn't get married till I was 37 years old. So when I had time to do those kinds of things, or when somebody found me acceptable enough to date, I guess. I'm working in my hometown, so I had all my friends were around for a long time. In that stretch of time, my next door neighbor was one of my best friends for my whole life. Bought the house next door to me. So he was like, everybody's friend. So he's like Will. So it was like living next door to you, but we're both single, and everybody comes and hangs out at your house. So I just walk next door and hang out. It was one of those kind of things.
Yeah, that's everybody did hang out at my house.
So it was one of those things. So I would, we'd go and we'd watch football over there, hang out over there, whatever. I also hosted. Now you guys know this. I hosted trivia nights as my. Not in the fall. I did actually some in the fall, but I wound it down a lot in the fall. But in the rest of the year, I would host trivia nights at bars because they, paid me well, and people were like, "Hey, WING's Mark Neal will be here to host this." And I did sports trivia, I did general trivia, I did all that kind of stuff just for extra money, and plus I wanted to meet new people. I was still at home in my hometown. I wanted to get a new circle, not to get rid of the circle that I had, but to add a new
Keep
one.
adding more people
Absolutely, nothing wrong with that.
into the funnel.
Yeah, adding friends into the funnel. All right, so you didn't get married to at 37, so we're working at the radio station. Man, I mean, I know where you want to go with this. Where do you want to go with this?
I'll wait for your lead, Will.
Go ahead, babe.
How did you meet your wife?
I met her. I just had not had a lot of success with meeting women. I'm in Dayton, Ohio. So I was like, I will be so mad at myself if I don't try something outside the box. So I actually got on an online.
Were you on eHarmony?
No.
Plenty of
Plenty of
Fish?
fish.
No.
Christian Mingle?
No.
Match.com.
Match. It was Match.com.
Look at it. We can name them all.
Yeah.
Which in retrospect, you don't know that going in, but there are seemingly more men on there than women. So I always joked with Tyra that I actually went on a date with a girl that I would never have gone on a date with just because I wanted to get one out of the way. I wanted to just
freshen up your skills.
I just wanted to so I don't know what it was. Just, try it. And it was just like the worst date I'd ever been on in my life. And I would get just kind of ignored. And you whatever. I'm like, okay, this isn't working as I thought it would. But I saw Tyra on there. I don't know what it was. We both kind of talked for a little bit, and then she's busy. She's still busy. But we ended up going, just meeting one time when her sister lives in Dayton. She was living in Cincinnati at the time, Tyra was.
And how far away is Cincinnati to Dayton?
Depending on where you live in Dayton, about 45 minutes.
Okay.
And then, at what age did you jump on this app?
Probably 36, 37. I wasn't on there that long.
Okay.
And we hit it off really well.
I have to imagine, you're a celebrity in the town.
I mean, that's really loose.
I'm going to call you a celebrity.
Yeah, come on. Don't.
I was at best a media celebrity.
Perfect.
Local media celebrity at best.
But so it's to actually go on a site like Match.com. Was that awkward for you or no? Were you
no more awkward than it would be for anybody else.
I mean, I had to drink a bottle of wine before I went on.
Yeah. Oh, I want to see what your profile looked like. But what was your opening line or email to Tyra?
I don't remember that. I mean, it's been so long now. I really don't remember that. I just know that she was a sports fan and I was a sports fan, and that was enough to kind of break the ice, essentially. And we got along real well. We had fun, and we just, I don't know. We've always kind of gotten along.
What was your first date?
I met her at a Buffalo Wild Wings just as a meetup place. But our first date was at this Italian restaurant in Dayton that we still go to all the time. It's a great restaurant called Mama de Salvo's.
So that was your second date at Mama de Salvo's.
Yeah, I guess the first one. I guess you could just meeting you. I don't know if you could. Is that a date or just the preamble?
Well,
I don't know.
I mean,
It's a date. If you're on a site and you meet up for the first time, that's a date.
That's a date. Yeah.
I guess the first thing we really planned, and somebody got picked up.
It's not like I like bicycling, you like bicycling. Let's go meet up. No,
Yeah,
it's
so.
like hey, I'm on a dating website. You're on a dating website. Let's go on a date. That's what that was.
Sure. Yeah, and I was in in radio still, so she would listen to the show at work and things like that.
So did she know who you were before you
No.
met? She didn't know that you were a radio media star.
No,
Okay.
Superstar.
Superstar.
she knew. I mean, she knew what I did from just talking, but she didn't know like I'd heard you before. No,
Wow.
All right. So
And what did Tyra do at this time?
she was working at a company called KAO. KAO. It was like the agency for like Jergens and things like that.
Okay.
because she does marketing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All right. So you guys meet up for your first date, second meetup at Buffalo Wild Wings. How'd it go?
Oh, it went well. You know, we have a lot of things in common, a lot of interests in common, and you know, we've always been able to just give gab, and that's kind of what that was. But yeah, it went well.
Awesome. Who paid?
I don't know. I'm sure I did.
You don't remember?
I don't. I mean,
I remember.
Pepperidge Farm members.
I try to save some of that storage for other things than that, but I don't remember that.
Who was the 32nd president?
I'd have to count back. I don't know though. I can't think of the number.
You-
Well, 35th I think was Kennedy. No, I can't remember. I'm not even gonna say.
I put you on
Well,
the
no,
spot.
Trump was 45th, so I thought Kennedy was 35th. So maybe Truman or Eisenhower. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah. See now. Yeah.
I can check.
32nd president.
Hey Siri, who was the 32nd president?
Truman or Eisenhower, maybe.
This is riveting podcasting right here.
I was just gonna Google it.
But so you know, the radio thing. I've been doing it a long time,
Mhm.
and it's one of those things where people.
Roosevelt.
Oh, okay. So I was one off. Roosevelt was the president before Truman. Okay, I was one off.
I didn't know that.
So the radio thing, business changed a lot over the years.
Yeah.
You know, when you first of all, like I said, when I started, it was infancy at best of sports talk. Then technology starts kicking in. So you could call or you could email, and I might see the email afterwards.
Mhm.
But then social media starts coming in, Twitter, things like that.
Twitter, yeah, but that had huge impact on sports.
In for good and bad. In the good, because it's a great promotional tool. I could podcast and put it out on Twitter and get extra clicks and listens and promote things a lot more easily. But people could also reach you and Twitter tough guy and
Was that your handle?
No, I'm just saying.
Oh.
No. Keyboard warrior type thing.
Oh, okay.
Talking.
Yeah.
It's like
Talking shit. We keep PG-13 here. We
Yeah.
try to, no f-bombs.
it's
Oh,
like,
really?
Try not to.
So, that, and it's one of those things where and especially early with Twitter, you're checking it, and that's the worst thing you can do. I would always tell, and I did a lot of talking to young people that wanted to get into this business. I've done all kinds of talks like that. I always tell them, don't check Twitter during your show. You have an opinion. Have it backed with whatever you're going to use to back it with, and don't let somebody sway you. And don't, once you start questioning yourself, there's a great line from Game of Thrones where he's like, the being the boss, it's like you can question yourself, but once you start listening to other people, anybody with a mouth can question you. Once you start questioning yourself, that's when you lose control, kind of.
Mhm.
So, and I couldn't help it with doing that, and then I would get so mad at these people because I was like, come up here. I'll tell
Yeah.
you. Here's
Yeah.
717 East David Road. Come up here. Step up to me and tell me that to my face, and I'll hand you your lungs. And it took me a lot to
I
not say
believe
that.
you.
It took me a lot to
Yeah.
not say that to
Yeah.
people. So
Okay, can I go back? So you and Tyra went to Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah.
Then you went to
Neal
the-
wants to go back to the sports, and Sarah's like, no.
No.
No,
And
no,
then,
no.
how long have you had your dog at this point?
my dog. Let's see, Trey. Maybe 2000. I probably had him 5 years,
Okay, so it's like Mark Neal and his dog Trey.
and Tyra had a dog too. So
Oh yeah.
Tyra has Zoe, and so over Buffalo Wild Wings. And when did you know that Tyra was the one?
Oh wow. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's just we've been together a while, and things had gone well. We're happy to be together and do things, and we had gotten a house in Centerville, which is a southern suburb of Dayton.
I mean, you knew she was the one before you got the house together, right?
Oh, I just hadn't, we hadn't got engaged.
You hadn't popped the question or
Yeah.
anything yet. Okay.
Did you ask her on the radio?
No, hell no. No, that's not what that's for. No, I did not do that. But no, it's just things. I don't know. I'd never been married before. But I felt like that was the time and that was the person. So it was that easy.
So how did you ask her?
I think I asked her like most other people ask people. We were at home and I asked her. I bought a ring and
Hey.
it wasn't anything overly elaborate.
Yeah. So you want to get married?
It was a little more planned out than that. But.
I can't wait till we have Tyra on and ask her version of the story.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, this is gonna be great.
No, but we have a lot of things in common. We have things that we are different, but that's of course. But all in all, we do well. Things can go a long way when people care about each other, and
Absolutely.
you can look past differences and have that being the most important commonality.
So where did you get married, and then what brought you to Minnesota?
We got married actually at her sister's house at the time. They had this really cool house with it's like a 2-story house, but the living room was 2 stories tall, and they had this really cool staircase going up, and we got married at the landing. My brother-in-law, her sister's husband, actually married us. It was on New Year's Eve, we got married there. They don't live in that house anymore, which was kind of cool going back there, but they don't live there anymore. And then we moved to Minnesota because she left her job at the time to come to Aveda, which is up in Blaine.
Mm-hmm.
And we were looking at 2 different houses.
Aveda headquarters.
Yeah. We were looking at 2 different houses, one in Shoreview and then the one we live in now in Golden Valley. And we decided to live in Golden Valley.
Can you imagine if you had lived in Shoreview?
The house was really cool, but we had been way out in the middle of kind of nowhere. And that house was like in the end of a dead end. It wasn't even like what we live on, like a cul-de-sac. It was like a dead end. It was the last house. It'd have been a lot different because it really helped. Our neighborhood really helped, not only with meeting Will when we were knocking on people's doors, trying to talk to neighbors, but the fact that our neighborhood is very unique. Like everybody knows. It's not like we just kind of wave. Everybody knows each other and knows their names and family and what they do. It's a very unique situation on our block.
We're pretty.
It's a neighborhood.
We're pretty blessed with with our neighborhood. Radio station, 18 years, Minnesota. How did that work? What happened there?
Well, I always knew that I would be leaving that job for something of hers because she makes infinitely more money than I did. So I knew that would be the deciding factor unless I somehow found something that was of much greater financial value than I had currently. So I knew that I would be leaving something for her job. And at the time, to be honest with you, I was fine with it. People always are like, I can't believe, you would quit that job. I did it for 18 years. I mean, there are people that do all kinds of things that they wanted to do and loved to do. And it just, that ran its course.
Mm-hmm.
And that had, at least in that town and in that station and dealing with that people and those people in that market, it had run its course for me. So when she said, hey, I've got this opportunity, I was like, let's go.
Wow.
I was ready to leave the station. I really was hoping and thought I could do something part-time here. It just hasn't worked out yet. I've had some opportunities, I thought, to work at some other stations too, because you could do so much remotely now. That just never panned out. But I'm fine with it. I had a lot of fun doing that. If I got to do it again, great. If I don't. Actually, when I go back to Dayton, I fill in for the guy that took over for me sometimes.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Really?
Like he knows I come because I'm in town a lot. You guys know that. I go back a lot. He'll say, hey, I'm taking this day off. Can you fill in for me? Actually, there's Cincinnati Reds do a fan fest. It's called Reds Fest. and every team does one. So when I was working there, we started being the Reds radio affiliate for Dayton, and we would do my show, a 3-hour edition of my show live from Reds Fest, and they would just give us players and former players and coaches
that'd
and
be cool.
the owner, and everybody would come one after another, and for 3 hours. And I'm actually going to be doing that with him this year in December when we go back. So I get to do that again. So I get to my fill.
So if we are in
That's
Minnesota
really
and we
cool.
wanted to hear that show, how could we hear it?
Oh, it'll be, you can listen to it online. The
Okay.
station's got an app, or you can listen to it on, probably iHeart or whatever the station, I'd have to ask him again, like what's.
Who owns it?
Yeah, what platform are you on nowadays? Yeah.
That is so cool.
It's fun. I fill in for him. Like I said, his show's 3 hours now. And once I get done, I'm like, okay, I'm done. I've had my fun. That was 3. I'm worn out,
Yeah.
So, but my nephew, my nephew wants to do what I do. So when he was in college, I got him a job at the radio station. So he was the program director at WWSU, which is Wright State's radio station. And he also worked part-time at WING. And so when I would fill in for the guy that took over for me, Justin, Shay and I, my nephew, would do the show together.
Cool.
That's really awesome. That's incredible.
And he just got his own full-time job. He actually moved out there yesterday. He just graduated
At
college.
the station?
He moved out to a station 45 minutes northeast of Tulsa. So he just moved. Like my brother and my sister-in-law driving him out there now. Like they're literally out there now.
Wow.
So he's starting his full-time radio career.
That's
He's
incredible.
got great steps to follow in.
Yeah, he does. That's awesome, man. I mean, I think we skipped a little bit in there, but that's okay. Sarah got to ask her question about the whole Tyra and the marriage and all that good stuff. So if you were to give anybody some advice to get into radio and sports or in general, do you have like a nugget for somebody?
Understand it's going to be difficult. There's not many jobs. I created my own job, really. So when I took over for the guy that was the program director before me, he wasn't even on air. So when I came in there really wasn't a full-time on-air show. Like I said, I wanted to create something. So I created a show for myself. Like a lot of people, especially in 2022, aren't going to be able to just create something create their own job. And now there's so much more competition. I didn't have a whole lot of competition at the beginning because there wasn't anything to compete over. So
Because now competition could be like podcasts, other radio stations.
oh, just any yahoo that thinks they're me that's never been on the air that thinks
Yeah.
they can host a radio show. I was the only yahoo.
Like me.
I was the only yahoo that created his own show or had the opportunity of the platform. So understand it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah.
It's not going to be very financially impressive early on, and you may never get to do it, and you might not be anywhere near good enough. It's a very difficult. It's difficult.
Jesus.
No, it's very difficult to be entertaining every day. It is.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to get people to listen to you every day.
I have a question. Sorry. I'm not sorry. So as the program director, this makes sense. Like you had to make those tough decisions and say, "Hey, you're not good enough. I'm sorry," or "This is a horrible idea," or "This is a great idea." So you probably saw a lot of people and were like,
Well, I didn't necessarily have that because there was no one else that worked at the station. I was the only full-time employee at that station. So there were salespeople that worked for all the stations.
"Okay,
But I was the only full-time person at that radio
at that station. Okay,
So I didn't have anybody doing other shows on the station that I would be like, I don't know if this is working out, or
Okay.
I need to hire somebody. I did all the shows.
wow." So it would have been awkward if you'd been like, "You know what? You're not good enough. One employee. That's me. Thank you."
But that's the kind of business it is. Like, you can know all the sports you can spit out all the stuff. If you don't know how to put it out there and verbalize it, and if you're not entertaining, whether that be funny enough or intelligent enough, people are just going to be like, all right, next.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They'll tune you out real quick.
Then it won't work out. So you just got to understand that, you could it could look like it, smell like it, taste like it, but you might not be it.
Wow. That's some hard advice, but it's true. So thank you for sharing that. That is burped. Excuse me.
Shocking.
Is there anything you want to wrap up with, or we go to
No, I
questions?
thought this was awesome.
Yeah, it was so cool. And
It's one thing to know that Mark Neal was in radio, but to actually
hear the story.
some of the journey of how
Yeah.
you got in.
there's I got to do so many cool things. I was I did guest color. The Dayton Dragons were a single A team for the Cincinnati Reds, and they're in town. We would air some of their games for years, and the president of the team and I really got along well, and he thought I was funny on the air, so I got to do fill-in work, and so I got to call professional baseball games on the side, doing that kind of thing. I got to dip my toes into a lot of things.
That's so cool.
One of my proudest things that happened was, I got put into my high school's Hall of Fame.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
They thought of me enough to recognize me as, an alumni that's worthy of going into
That is really cool.
the Hall of Fame. And I got a plaque in my basement, and got a plaque at the school. It was right next to the janitor's closet. I joked with them. I said, at least I know it'll be clean.
Yeah.
Mark Neal likes a tidy house.
You do, yeah.
But now they're building a new school, so I don't know where they'll put me now.
Well, they better move it right back next to the janitor's closet again.
So I got to do a lot of really cool things. I kind of burned myself out because I was the only guy. So that
18 years too. That's a hell of a run.
Yeah, and that expedited, me being okay with leaving.
Yeah.
And marriage is a team, and she was ready to, she supported me. It's time for me to reciprocate, and so I did. And now she's doing great things, and she's moved all the way up to C-suite type level, and
Yeah, Tyra's amazing. Yeah, I mean, you're both amazing. Like, we absolutely love having you as friends,
well, thank you.
and love having you as neighbors. And
Our
it's-
quarantine.
our quarantine crew, and I mean, we survived COVID together.
And now I can focus, instead of radio and sports, I can focus on making sausage.
Thank
Yes.
I can
Yep,
focus on my
yep.
gardening.
Yep.
you. Your yard.
All our yard work, and now my Tyra calls me the chief household officer. I'm the CHO.
The show.
So that was our agreement. I said, you work, you make the money, and I'll do everything else. So she goes downstairs, she works, and after work, I don't expect her to do anything. Come up, sit on the couch.
Yep.
I do all the cooking, the cleaning,
Yeah.
all the shopping, all the errand running.
Like, I mean, you still work a solid 40-hour week. I know. You're always doing something. You're not just. I mean,
there's a lot to do.
Yeah, like an old Al Bundy thing, sitting on the couch eating peppermint bonbons.
I'm not a sitter.
No.
Probably only on Saturdays.
Well, Saturdays, college football Saturdays, fall Saturdays.
Fall Saturdays.
Are off limits, and that's Tyra knows that. There's, don't even schedule anything for me.
No
those days.
apple picking on Saturdays.
No.
That's the Sunday.
That is this Sunday. No, but there's always a lot to do, and we had a lot of plans for the house, and so I'm in charge. And a lot of that, we just got all that irrigation put in, and that was 10 months, of scheduling 4 different businesses to come out. All kinds of little hiccups along the way. Cable company gets
I forgot about that.
I got my
Yeah.
cable cut by the irrigation people, and then the cable people cut my irrigation when they were putting the cable back. And
No,
so,
they didn't.
Yeah. So
That's
they were.
awesome.
So they cut theirs, and then they cut theirs. So I handle all that gladly. But I do all that stuff, which I enjoy that role.
Yeah.
I find fulfillment in that role, and also we love to go back. We have still our house in Ohio, and so we go back a lot. And if 2 of us were trying to find time off from a job, it'd be difficult.
Yeah, it would be.
So
Yep.
it's one thing she can do her job from the house, and maybe I could find something that I could do from that house as well. But if I were to have a regular job that required me to go into an office of some sort or some description, getting off work as often as we go back and being gone
As long as
stretches
you are.
we go
Yeah.
is tough.
Okay, my last question. When you said that you knocked on neighbors' doors when you were house hunting,
Yes.
what was your impression of Will?
I immediately, Tyra was like, this is where we, okay, so you were smoking something, and I'm not
Yeah.
talking about drugs. You were smoking something that had parents, so pork or
Yeah.
something. And so we go in.
So basically, the green egg was out.
No, I don't even know if you had that yet, did you?
No, I had. It was either the egg or the Traeger, one of the two. Now I don't have the Traeger anymore, but no, I had the egg. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the egg because you didn't have the Traeger
I don't think I had the Traeger yet.
And we went in, and you had a lot of bourbon. And so one way to my heart is meat and bourbon. As you know, I'm a big bourbon fan.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we were like, this is good. And, we knocked on a couple other doors. We had, I'll tell you off air, one of the other neighbors, the kid answered the door, and the mom's like, who is it? Tell them that we don't want any.
Must have been Fuller.
No, closer to my house.
Yeah.
But actually, Will was, I think the one we actually talked to, because once we got to him, we just turned around. We were like, this is fine, because we didn't get any of that kind of vibe at the house in Shoreview. So we were like, I think this is better. Tyra loved the house too, and there's a lot of, what's the word? A lot of potential for that house.
A lot of upside, yeah.
Because there's a lot that had been done, but a lot left to be done to it, and we could kind of make it our own. With whether it be the landscaping, all the the work we did on the interior with the closets and things like that.
The fence, all the good things.
Yeah, all the stuff that we were able to do to that place, even though as complete as it was, there was a lot more to be completed. So we were like, this works, and we're happy with it, certainly.
Very cool.
Will, I'm glad you were home that day.
I literally, I don't. Yes, so am I.
Sam and Emily also knocked on the door, and Will was home.
It was Sam and Emily's parents.
Oh, okay.
And Will's never home.
I know. Like, seriously, the universe was like, listen, these people need to be your homies, and we love Sam and Emily too. All right, so we wrap up every podcast by asking, what are your top 5 favorite restaurants?
Oh, gosh.
And I know this is going to be tough for you, but here's the thing. This will be maybe a saving grace for you. It can be anywhere you want. And it can be for nostalgia reasons. We had one gentleman say Olive Garden because he went there with his mother all the time. So he's like, it's not like, oh, it's the best food. It's he just really enjoyed that.
Certainly not that.
Yeah. So, okay, let's go with number 5.
Well, I don't know if I can put them in any order. I might
Yeah,
be. I told you, favorites are tough for me.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, there's a deli in Cleveland called Slyman's Deli, and they're like a deli like Cantor's in New York, where they got the sandwiches are half a foot tall with the
like Katz's Deli.
Yeah, kind of the same kind of thing.
Okay. Yep.
So they have the corned beef sandwich that's as big as your head kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Man, every time we go to Cleveland, I have to go to Slyman's. For sure. Mama DeSalvo's in Dayton. Great Italian food. Now,
Well, hold on. Are we moving on to number 4 then?
yeah, that's number 4.
Number 4.
Yeah, and like I said, this is in no particular order.
We'll hold it to you.
This is another
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
I love Mama DeSalvo's. It's obviously an Italian family that's been around forever. The kids do it. They took over for the mom. I'm not Italian, nor have I ever lived in Italy, so I don't know how authentic Italian it is, but I like it. Another place that's near and dear to my heart is number 3.
Number 3.
Don Pablo's, which actually was
Yeah.
up here. I worked at Don Pablo's for years.
Yep. I was
as
hoping
a
this would come
bartender,
up.
and I learned a lot about cooking from the kitchen staff there. We had a lot of Latino kitchen folk that worked there, and they really taught me a lot about authentic how they ate. For the lack of a better way to say it.
Yeah.
This is how you guys eat our food. This
This is how we eat our food. Yeah.
And it was really interesting to learn from them at the preparation. I love to make Mexican food. I also love to make Italian food. My version of both. And I learned a lot from both of them on how to do that kind of stuff. And plus I worked there for so long and ate the food so much, So I
Mark
love
Neal
Don
can
Pablo.
make a fantastic margarita.
And I learned how to make a great margarita there. The authentic, we call it the real margarita.
Yeah. I mean, you're doing the lime juice, all that stuff. Like,
And the secret ingredient, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah. We know it is. But
So it's really good. Now the irony is that I don't like margaritas because I worked a lot of lunch shifts, and you're making batches of their house margaritas. So it's 11 o'clock in the morning, and you're over a bucket of
You.
Yeah, I make them. I don't drink them.
love it. Number 2.
Oh boy. Someplace fish like. There's a place in Dayton called Jay's Seafood. There's also a place in Columbus called Columbus Fish Market. I love great fish places. Places I can get something fresh and good. Now, Middle America isn't necessarily it. I'd probably rather go to some place on the coast, someplace a little bit closer to water. But those are awfully good. I really enjoy both of those places.
All right. And number 1.
Oh, number 1. Did you say restaurants or places to eat?
Places to I guess we'll say places to eat.
Then it's not. I'm not gonna say it's number one, but it's my top 5 at home. I love to cook. I love because I'm kind of a particular eater. I like to cook, so I would say eating and my own prepared food would be next. I mean, tonight, for example, we're using our homemade kielbasa. We have homemade pierogies that I'm going to be eating with said kielbasa.
Yeah.
So homemade potato and onion and all that cheese pierogies with our homemade kielbasa. That's good.
That's
good
awesome.
stuff.
I have to agree with you because it is hard to really say a restaurant is my favorite after I've eaten on our street. Because you have specialties, Fuller has specialties, Will has specialties.
Yeah.
Like it's
We all kind of do
Sam and
stuff
Emily, yeah, for
differently.
sure.
too.
Yeah.
we don't need to necessarily leave the street to have amazing food.
Yeah. And cooking, to me, I've always enjoyed it. I've always found it interesting that some people just have no idea. It's like, you do this 3 times a day. You don't know how to cook. I think that should be something that should be much more stressed in school. Like in high school, I took Foods 1, Foods 2, and Advanced Foods, and I was the prize bull, if you will, of Mrs. Goebel's Advanced Foods class.
Oh my God, that is fantastic.
I was her favorite student of all time, probably. She loved me to death in her Advanced Foods class, and I just think that should be something. You don't need to go to the extent that we do necessarily, but maybe you'll get there on your own because you start off being able to make your own breakfast.
Yeah.
I just think it's shocking to me that people have such a paucity of knowledge when it comes to feeding yourself.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on,
Of
sir.
course. Thank you for
appreciate
asking.
it. And as always, we out. Deuces.